So what you're saying is someone is diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer.
Yeah.
They've been told they've got 3 months to live. You think that with Ayurveda, they can change their diagnosis and they can live longer.
Every single thing I do Ayurvedically in the arena of cancer has published, peer-reviewed clinical evidence to support it.
I'm afraid people might look at that and feel we are saying it's a bunch of woo-woo.
It's thousands of years old. It originated in the Himalayan region of India. There are a lot of synergy over the last few years around how Ayurveda understands the body.
So many things have been lost from Ayurveda in India to the West. Oh, well, you're not from the West.
Yes, but I was trained predominantly by a Sri Lankan.
So if you're struggling with cancer at the moment, what you're saying actually is figure out a time where you can wake up on time at the same time every single day.
Yeah.
Make sure you get that morning sunlight.
If you expose your eyes to light in the first 90 minutes after sunrise, it will stimulate the SCN to do everything it has to do. Job done.
Now it's become so much about what we're achieving rather than how we're living. It's really just so simple because it is simple.
But it should be simple.
Yeah, it should be.
Health is simple. It's just we put things in our way that make it difficult.
Yeah, great. You've told me about an ECAP. You've told me about these exceptional stories of people who have survived cancer. But guess what? Someone I love has just been diagnosed with cancer. I feel as if my whole world is crashing down. What the hell do I do? This episode is brought to you by Lovable, an AI platform that honestly saved me so much time because I'm getting married this year and there is so much to do. One thing we kept putting off was a wedding website until I found Lovable. It's an AI tool that helps you build beautiful, functional websites or apps within minutes, literally by typing in prompts and sharing a few examples. That's it. No coding, no tech headaches, no expensive costs. I used Lovable to build our wedding website. I added a cover photo, updated the fonts, tweaked the RSVP section, and I was done and it looked amazing. Whilst I used it for our wedding, you can use it for a business, a project, a portfolio, literally anything. Some people have built businesses that now help them drive so much revenue. So if you've been putting off building your website or your app, try Lovable. It's fast, simple, and actually kind of fun. You can check it out for yourself. I'll leave the link in the show notes and you can start your free trial today. When we think about cancer treatment, our minds usually go straight to chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery. But what if healing was more about than just medicine alone? In today's episode, I sit down with Dr. Sam Watts, integrative healthcare consultant and author of the Ayurvedic Approach to Cancer, to explore the role ancient wisdom might play in one of the most modern health challenges. Ayurveda is often dismissed as mystical, unscientific, or even unsafe in the world of oncology. But Sam is here to challenge that narrative. He spent years researching how mindset, circadian rhythm, food, herbal therapy, and breathwork can support, not replace, conventional cancer care. We dig into the stigma around complementary therapies, the tension it can cause within families, and why rejecting holistic practices outright might rob patients to support their bodies when they deeply need it. This isn't about false hope. It's about more than hope, and it's about what's possible when we move beyond either or thinking. Whether you're navigating illness, supporting someone who is, or just curious about the intersection of ancient and modern medicine, this conversation might just change the way you see healing. Now, I want to add a disclaimer. This information shared in this episode is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended to be medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So always consult your doctor or a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your treatment plan or trying any new approaches. This conversation is meant to open up a dialogue, not replace professional medical guidance. And I just want to say, I'm so grateful that I'm able to have these kind of conversations, one where we expand our mindset, we expand our thinking, and we learn more. And I'm only able to do that with your support. So if you like this conversation, please share it, but please also press the like, follow, and subscribe button so that we can have more of these empowering conversations and learn and grow together. I'm so excited for you to hear this episode. Let's get into it. Welcome to Millennial Mind.
Thank you so much for having me on.
No, thank you so much for coming. I know you've traveled a long way to be here with me today.
No, it's a real privilege.
I am really looking forward to this episode because I know a lot of people who have struggled with cancer. A lot of people have, survived it. A lot of people have felt better. A lot of people have even said that, it was one of the most important things that happened to them. It taught them a lot. But I've also known a lot of people who haven't survived. And I've known a lot of people who have tried so many different things, ended up blaming themselves, feeling really overwhelmed. And that's why I invited you today to change my mind on how Ayurveda can actually support cancer care. And it's not just this natural healing, woo-woo, random thing.
Yeah.
It is something that you've seen does produce results. So I want to start with the very basic question, because as I was leaving the house today, I said to Nikhil, my partner, I'm doing a podcast today with you. And he said, is Ayurveda a supplement? By the way, we're both Indian. I looked at him, I was so confused. I was like, right, okay, you need to listen to this podcast. But for those people who are just as confused as Nikhil, what is Ayurveda?
I mean, to be fair, I think it's quite common.
Yeah.
It's a lot less common now than what it was 10 years ago. But Ayurveda is, the standard answer is, it's a holistic system of medicine. It's thousands of years old. It originated in the Himalayan region of India. But I think the better way of contextualizing it is that the beauty of it, the power of it is that it's individualized. And the analogy I always give, and I've said it elsewhere, but it's like a car in that if you drive a Mercedes and you have to service that car every year, if you give the garage a Ford service guide, it's not going to help. It's the wrong manual for the wrong car that requires different needs. You can only service that car with the manual that is suitable for that car. And the same with us. Your body, your needs, nutritionally, psychologically, immunologically, every part of you, every cell in your body will need different things to me and to anyone else. So every single person, even twins who are genetically identical, they still require different needs. They have different requirements in their body. And what Ayurveda does is provide a really clear roadmap for how you facilitate not just healthcare, but individualized healthcare. What's good for me? Nothing is inherently good. We could take something like ginger, one of the most evidence-based health foods on the planet. If you've got a peptic ulcer or acid reflux, ginger could be really bad.
It's really bad for me.
Yeah, there you go.
So I love ginger.
Yeah.
I love a ginger shot. I still have it sometimes, not going to lie. Whenever I have too much ginger, i.e., even if I have ginger kombucha 2 days in a row, I'll get a rash on my body. And here on my finger, you can see like I've got a mark. Okay, well, that's always get a rash there.
Perfect example. So you could look at all the research in the world saying ginger's great for heart health and immunological health, but it doesn't have the label as good or bad. For one person, it'd be really, really good, but for you, it's bad in if you have too much of it. So is ginger good or is it bad? Doesn't have those qualities, and that applies to every exercise, sleep protocol, drug, medicine. It's about what's good for the individual. And in my view, in my experience, Ayurveda is the most it's the easiest way of individualizing how we look after our health in terms of our own needs, rather than just the mass application of the health dialogue as such. So that's why I think it's easiest to contextualize Ayurveda is as an individualized system of health.
Why is it so easy to figure out what's good for us and what's not?
Because it uses something called the Doshas, which you may have heard of.
I have.
Yeah, so the Doshas, and there's so much misunderstanding and confusion around the Doshas in the West. I've been to so many conferences where people are, really arguing quite aggressively about what they are. But all they are is just essentially an Ayurvedic concept of genetics in a broader way. So the Doshas are mind-body constitution. So they inform every part of what makes a person that person in terms of their mind, their emotions, their body, everything. All the nuances, likes, dislikes, hobbies, everything that makes a person that person is informed by their doshic makeup. In the same way it is by their genome.
Wow.
So if you can understand what your doshic ratio is between Vata, Pitta, Kapha, that will then inform how you should be living in a way that's going to maintain homeostasis, optimal balance in the body in terms of how we eat, how we exercise, our lifestyle, our herbs, all of it. So it's about understanding who we are as individuals, how that aligns with the doshic framework, and how we use that framework to then inform our self-care.
But how can every individual fit into one of these three doshas?
Well, they don't. There's an infinite array of variation within those. So of the three doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, you might be, for example, very dominant in Vata and Pitta. So you might be very creative, but very driven and very focused. But then you'll have a complete unique ratio of those two dominant doshas, those two dominant kind of genetic profiles that are completely unique to you. So then it's about understanding, okay, well, if you're very dominant in, say, Vata and secondary dominant in Pitta, that's going to inform for you how you construct your life to optimize your health. So within those 3 parameters, there's infinite variety. And that variety is easy to understand when you look at it through the lens of the Ayurvedic framework. But what's so interesting is now there's so much research actually aligning the doshas to Western genetic work.
Okay.
Yeah, so the actual genome work. So actually what we're seeing is there are a lot of synergy over the last few years around how Ayurveda understands the body, particularly around things like nutritional needs, how that aligns with Western genomic research, and how the two then dovetail together. So actually it is very much moving into the 21st century in that context.
And how do I find out what my dosha is? Would you be able to tell me right now what mine is?
I wouldn't be able to tell you, robustly what it is, but I'd get a very good sense of, I would say if I had to, put something on the table now, I'd probably say that your pitta are dominant.
Yeah.
I'd say your secondary vata and probably quite significantly lower kapha.
Completely correct.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I mean, that's what I always say. Anyone that gets into Ayurveda, it becomes, if you've got even the slightest hint of an obsessive personality, as soon as you meet someone, you shake their hands, instantly your mind is just going like, do they make eye contact? What color are their eyes?
Really?
Does their hand feel hot or cold? How do they move? Like within about 30 seconds, you kind of get quite a sense of who this person is, what makes them tick, how they're probably going to respond. So yeah, it's really quite empowering.
So understanding someone's dosha can actually be really powerful when you're trying to understand people.
Massively. And in the family network, transformative.
Okay, so tell me how I'd identify someone else's dosha. Describe the 3 different types and what each of them mean.
So the 3, so Vata is... characteristically, they're light, mobile, excitable, creative, doing a million things at once, just gesticulating, really animated, energized, very, very creative, bubbly. They're often quite lighter frame. They're often physiologically not weaker, but more vulnerable. It's the weakest of the doshas physically.
Ooh. I am quite weak.
My
grandma can beat me in an arm wrestle. Okay. She's 87.
Okay. The pittas are the focused, driven, type A, disciplined, motivated leaders who drive, anyone who creates the performance planner is probably going to be a pitta straight off the bat, just looking at behind you. Very driven, very focused, very ambitious. Very often business owners. Physically, they kind of straddle the line between Vata and Pitta. They're quite robust, but they suffer with thermoregulatory issues, so heat-based issues. So they feel the heat, often will sweat quite easily.
I'm the opposite. I'm always cold, like freezing.
Yeah, but that's that Vata Pitta side, because Vata's cold.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're obviously very creative because of what you do. So that's why, to me, that balance between a Pitta and a Vata, it's hard to say which one's dominant because I've only met you for 10, 15 minutes. But so that's what you'll see. You'll see someone who's got a lot of Pitta in one context, but you'll say the complete opposite, like, well, I'm always cold. That just validates that there's quite a dominant Vata side as well.
Wow.
And no one is going to be, because we've all got all the same organs and the same genes, we've all got all 3 doshas working in us. It's just which predominate and it's the one that is most active in the way our body and mind works.
Got it.
And then Kapha is the very slow, laid back, relaxed, grounded, nourishing kind. Everyone needs a Kapha in your life. If you've got a Kapha in your life, they're really valued because they're the ones that the really solid, dependable port in a storm person. And I think our educational system and our commercial system always beats Kapha out of people because school and work and commerce values creativity and productivity. That's Vata and Pitta. And it doesn't really value that very nourishing, nurturing, empathetic, slow, just chilling out, taking life as it comes. And if you do have one of those Kapha dominant people in your life, it has a very grounding effect on if you're more Vata or Pitta.
It's definitely my fiance.
There you go.
He's so relaxed and he's very driven. Yeah. He's way more successful than me, I could ever imagine, but he's very calm.
Okay.
Until he loses it though.
Yeah.
So he generally, I would say day to day.
Yeah.
Very calm, very relaxed. if something happens, he's like, I'm not going to let it bother me. Him and my mum are like the epitome of the let them theory.
Okay.
They should have written that book. For everything, they're just like, let them, I don't care, whatever. I'm just like, I'm getting worked up over small things. Both my mum and my fiance are very kapha, I would say.
Yeah, but probably quite a lot of pitta as well. If you're
he is, yes, I would say
successful.
so.
And that's what it doesn't take a lot of practice to really get a sense of, and that's really powerful because it allows you to inform how you manage and you support that person. You know their weaknesses, their triggers, and put things in place to mitigate those. So actually, in terms of work relationships, family relationships, it's really powerful for maintaining balance and health and well-being and in all its forms. So it is useful.
We've just talked about all the benefits of all three of those doshas. What are the weaknesses of all three doshas? And what can we look out for? And how can we support those people who are struggling with those things?
I mean, there's physical weaknesses and psychological, emotional weaknesses for all three doshas. So in terms of vata, physically, it is vulnerability to illness, infections. They're often, like I say, constitutionally weaker, fatigue, very emotionally vulnerable to things like anxiety, stress, rumination, insomnia, not being able to switch off, really ruminating about anxiety, creating issues or people or problems. Very, very common. The pitta types, they're very, very vulnerable to inflammatory, in the physical body, inflammatory problems. So inflammatory bowel diseases, inflammatory skin problems, eczema, anything that's kind of inflamed, hot, but very often in the emotional body, very when they're out of balance, confrontational, combative, argumentative, their way or the highway. I don't care what advice I'm getting from people who know this area better than me. I want it like this, and that's it. Which is
stubborn.
Yeah, stubborn. When it's in, and that's a good thing when it's in balance, but when it's out of balance, it can often cause problems. Whereas the kapha type, because they're very slow and heavy, their biggest vulnerability is metabolic. So things like weight gain, high blood sugar, high cholesterol, and then emotionally things like inertia, lethargy, poor motivation, lack of get up and go, even the very heavy depression where you just feel overwhelmed by life. So you do see, and if you know someone in your life who is predominantly, for example, kapha, you will very often see those vulnerabilities play out as the years and decades go by in people you know closest. You will see that vulnerability play out again and again and again.
Well, how do I know if I'm just lazy or if I'm just kapha dosha?
Because it won't be in isolation. So
what if I'm just a lazy person? We're kind of raising lazy kids now. We're like putting a TV in front of them. No one's going outside. We're constantly scrolling. How are we not raising a generation of kaphas, basically?
Well, I think it's really interesting because I've got 3 children.
Do you? Wow.
Yeah. And I've got a very dominant vata, a very dominant pitta, and a very dominant kapha, bizarrely, because it's a very unusual situation to find yourself in. And so my son, has very pittagenic qualities, very driven. He's a very high level mountain biker. He's sponsored, and he gets up, doesn't really watch telly. He has a phone, but he will always be doing things, whether it's trampolining, training, running, biking, and there's not an iota of that slobbiness in him. Whereas my youngest is very, very kaphagenic, very kapha dominant, and we have to always lead. Let's go for a bike ride. Let's go swimming. Whereas her thing would be to have a house day and chill out at home and watch telly and maybe do some cooking or and that's what she would choose to do. It's not bad. It's neither is better or worse, but there is obviously a health implication of being more inactive. So that informs how we parent the children in the same household.
How are you not labeling them though? Because I guess it's very easy to say there's only 3 doshas and every single person in the whole world kind of has a dominant one. Because when you just said you'd like to stay at home, I would love to stay at home all day of the week. And I feel that when I was younger, I was always a get up and go person. Always. I was always waking up early. I don't know what I was doing now with all my time, but I was always up. I was always active. I'd always be busy. And I would say my life is like that now.
Yeah.
However, I am now in my 30s and I'm acting as if I'm 90 years old though. But I do feel like I'm slowing down a bit and I am more tired. When I was in my 20s, when I started the podcast, when I was around 25, 26, 5 hours of sleep was fine for me.
Yeah.
6 was fine. Now if I get 7 or 8, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come on to circadian rhythm because I know you talk so much about that.
Yeah.
But I do feel that sometimes that these doshas, they can be quite limiting.
They can be limiting if you become trapped by them.
Yes. Because people will just say, look, you don't get me.
Yeah.
Because you don't understand. I can't work that hard. I cannot go outside with you. I cannot meet you. I'm a kapha. That's
a massive, and that's the biggest issue that's been lost in translation from Ayurveda in India to when it's been brought over to the West. Because in the way that the West has interpreted it is as a limiting factor, has a ceiling on it. I am, like you say, caphogenic. I don't like exercise, so therefore I'm not going to go and meet you for the run. And that it's no part, because one of the key tenets of Ayurveda is like increases like and opposites decrease. So what
does that mean?
So if you have the qualities of kapha, or vata or pitta, and you do loads of things that have the same qualities, you're going to aggravate it even more. So if kapha is very heavy and slow and inert, and you do loads of things that are heavy and slow and inert, so sleeping too long, not exercising, eating heavy food, calorific food, it's going to make you feel worse and worse and worse and worse. Whereas if you're caphogenic and you do something that has the opposite qualities, so things that are stimulating, mobilizing, energizing, exercise, trying something different, reading a different genre of book, stimulating yourself, that will decrease those potentially limiting aspects of kapha. So when we're trying to maintain balance, what we're trying to do is understand what are my predispositions, what things do I know are potentially not good for me, and how do I put in place a lifestyle and a diet and a way of being that's going to support me, not to the extreme, not as a limiting factor or a prison, but as a way that's going to allow me to thrive without going too far either way.
Got it.
And I think as soon as you view it as an excuse, it's so damaging, so limiting. But as soon as you see it as a tool for empowerment, it's transformative.
I want to ask you a difficult question.
What?
You've said a couple of times, so many things have been lost from Ayurveda in India to the West.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not from the West?
Yes, but I was trained predominantly by a Sri Lankan. So my kind of foundation of Ayurveda, although what I do now, in particular in the cancer world, is about marrying traditional Ayurveda with absolute robust Western evidence. Every single thing I do Ayurvedically in the arena of cancer has published, peer-reviewed clinical evidence to support it. Not maybe, sometimes, possibly, unequivocally, always, without exception.
Wow.
But at the same time, I've still been very privileged to have had that authentic understanding of how someone who was trained and lived as in Ayurvedically in Sri Lanka perceived classical Ayurveda, and how that then relates to where we are in the West, particularly in the cancer context. So and I think I'm very privileged that I had that, because it allows me to essentially straddle both sides of that issue.
I really wanted to just bring that up, actually, because I think it's so easy for people to criticize in that arena and say, well, we are in the West right now. And so we're not in India. Yeah. We're not living there. We don't have that experience, but we can still learn it and we can still adopt it.
Yeah.
So I really want to start with now talking around what the public perception on Ayurveda in the role of healing and treating cancer is. What do you think it is?
I think it's good now.
Do you?
I do, because I think, and since COVID, I think there's been a very significant shift. I've definitely seen that in the conferences and the publications and the medical journals. And I know just from the social media engagement, I think before it was very much people having to, someone's been diagnosed with cancer in someone's family and they have to actively seek out other supporting practices, and they stumble across Ayurveda. Whereas what you find now is people being diagnosed with cancer and actively seeking Ayurveda. And I think celebrity culture has done a lot with that. I think the fact that the royal family and the Beckhams and the Jaggers and very very common household names, celebrities are using it, I think has done an awful lot. But I think I think within the cancer arena, the awareness of Ayurveda is very, very strong. I think that comes from America because the American Cancer Association did some very powerful studies around how to integrate evidence-based Ayurveda into the cancer model in America. And that then almost gave the validity for the rest of the world. So, well, they're looking at it, there must be something to it.
Right.
And I think that was quite a watershed moment in the evolution of Ayurveda in the West.
So you're not against conventional care?
Nope. Not one iota of me is against conventional care, to be absolutely clear on this, because I always get asked this.
Yes. It can be very confusing for people also because we think we have to do either or.
Yeah.
So what do you believe, Sam?
I believe that at the center, if you're diagnosed, can I just backtrack and contextualize this? So my kind of passion within the world of cancer care is something called ECAPs. So that exceptional cancer patients. So these are people with terminal incurable cancer who typically have a prognosis of less than 12 to 16 months, best case, who it's impossible for them to survive clinically, who then go on to 5, 7, 10 plus years survival, in rarer cases, complete remission, no sign of cancer. And they're not common, but they're not rare either. And I've worked, I feel very privileged that I've met and worked with hundreds and hundreds of these ECAPs over the years. And what the motivation for that is if you can analyze and assess these ECAPs and try to delineate what they've done that has allowed them to become exceptional, because they haven't had access to different treatments or novel drugs or clinical trials. They're just normal people in the street. If you can analyze them and say, what have you done in your own words since the point where you were given this incurable terminal prognosis, what have you done? If you then see commonalities around what all of these people do, the chances are that those practices that are a common denominator are probably going to be very predictive of what allowed them to become exceptional. So you can then package those up, give them to other people to try and help them become exceptional. And across, does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so across all of that research, what my belief is based upon that research is that at the center of the cancer care model shouldn't be conventional medicine. It shouldn't be Ayurvedic medicine. It shouldn't be any medicine. It should be the person. It should be the person living with cancer absolutely in the middle of the circle. And then around that circle, you create a absolutely bulletproof treatment protocol that uses as many tools, disciplines, and practices as you possibly can to allow you to survive. And that includes the best of conventional care, if it's indicated, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, whatever that looks like. But the problem arises when you stop there. And you say, right, my ability to survive, my ability to watch my kids grow up rests squarely outside of me. I have no agency over the way that chemotherapy works. I have no control over how that hormone therapy works. It's being put into my body and I can't do anything about it. So,
how can you do something about it then?
Well, you can't. But what you can do is then say, okay, I'm going to take the very best of that, but I'm going to do absolutely everything else around the perimeter of that circle to make sure that I have as much agency and as much control over my immunology, my anti-cancer defenses, my anti-cancer diet, my herbs, my supplements, everything, so that the part that I don't have control over, I'm hoping above all hope that it's going to do what the prescriber said it's going to do.
Wow.
But if that doesn't work, I'm not suddenly up a creek without a paddle, because I've still got loads and loads of other evidence-based practices that I am adopting that can hopefully shore up shortcomings sometimes in the conventional treatments. So, and that's what integrative cancer care is. It's about a patient-centered treatment plan where you're taking the very best of lots of different disciplines and packaging them into one protocol that allows you to completely change the dialogue around what's happening to me. I'm not this impotent, hopeless, helpless person living with cancer, and my ability to survive is dependent upon someone else. It's about me saying, okay, I'm living with this cancer and I don't care what you tell me. I don't care what statistics are put in front of me. My ability to survive is down to me. I choose my own reality, and that reality is that in 10 years I'm going to be here, and this is how I'm going to make that happen.
So what you're saying is someone is diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer.
Yeah.
They've been told they've got 3 months to live.
Yeah.
You think that with Ayurveda, they can change their diagnosis and they can live longer?
Not just with Ayurveda. So that,
with the medicine as well.
With everything. So
But what if they said it's too late for you to take medicine?
there's never, so most of the ECAPs I've worked with have been too late stage to benefit from chemotherapy because there's no benefit at that point.
Right.
So, and in the book, I mention a few of them. And the one, kind of the most amazing one that I've worked with closely was my wife's aunt, who was diagnosed with incurable esophageal and stomach cancer. And now she went into complete remission 3 years ago. And the consultant ended that consultation by saying, I'm going to do something today that all of my training has told me is impossible. I'm going to declare someone with stage 4 incurable cancer as being not just free of cancer, but microscopically free of cancer. And that's the point of this, is that no one knows it. If you're living with cancer, what I'm not saying that everyone with terminal stage 4 cancer can survive.
Yes.
But what I am saying is that everyone with terminal cancer has the potential to. And I think, above every oncology center in the world, there should be a sign, which is famous in this research, which is that of the main 150 cancers, there isn't one of those cancers that someone with a stage 4 incurable prognosis hasn't gone on to survive with long term for more than 5 years.
No way.
Yeah, unequivocally. Not maybe, not my point of view. That's a clinical fact.
Why aren't we told that?
Well, this is it. So if you're, I'm working with someone at the moment, his 15-year-old son's got terminal brain cancer, or glioma, less than about 12 months to live. Oh, God. There are people with glioma who've survived 10 plus years when it was incurable. And that applies to every other cancer that there is, you can be diagnosed with. So what that does is where you move from a situation where that person looks you in the eyes and said, I'm sorry, Mrs. Bloggs or Mr. Bloggs, there's not much more we can do. You've got 12 months, get your affairs in order, to actually saying, okay, the scans have come back. It's not great. It's now at a point where we can't really do that much in terms of, clinical treatments, but there is a huge, huge amount that you can do to change the direction of this illness. And just knowing that you can, just knowing that someone with that prognosis has survived, how that changes your outlook, because hopelessness becomes hope and disempowerment becomes empowerment. And you wake up in the morning rather than feeling, what's the point? There's no point me changing my diet. There's no point me throwing the kitchen sink at this because I'm going to die in 12 months. So rather actually, I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at this because I know that it is potentially possible for me to overcome this. And that's why the ECAP work is so important, because it's a beacon of hope, of evidence-based hope for people who are facing an otherwise hopeless situation. And one of the criticisms, and I get it most days on social media, is that, particularly with the book and the message of the book, which talks a lot about, because there's actually the immunology and the biochemistry of hope. So when you have a hope mindset, it actually changes something called our peptides in the very, very powerful anti-cancer mechanisms. And they always say, well, you're propagating false hope, and it's dangerous, and it's immoral, and it's unethical. Right. But to me, that's a misnomer, because there's either, if there's no such thing as false hope. There's either hope or there isn't. If there's breath in the body, there's hope. There's one case, the most extreme ECAP in the literature was in a hospice in Australia with less than 7 days they literally had the undertaker, everything lined up. He was meant to be dead with a maximum 7 days, called Ian Gawler. And he's now 37 years down the line, and his whole life work has been about propagating what we're talking about. Less than a week to live.
No.
Yeah. Documented scans, x-rays, blood results, the full shebang. So that's not to say that everyone in hospice can get up and walk out and survive, but there's the potential for it. And knowing there's a potential for it changes what happens.
Hope is one of the things that we all desperately want. Something that I believe that we all desperately have.
Yeah.
Every single one of us has the ability to dream. Every single one of us has the ability to believe. Yeah. And we can create hope if we shift our mindset. Yeah. And I think so often we're told, don't give false promises, don't raise people's expectations. Yeah. But why not?
Why not?
What's my alternative?
Yeah.
I'm either hopeful or I think nothing is going to work for me. Yeah. And I talk about this in goal setting. Yeah. When I do goal setting at the start of the year, the reason I do it in January is because that's when people are hopeful. They've got dreams for the year, right? Yeah. And it's way better to have dreams for the year at the start of every year when people slam goal setting than to have none. Yeah. And to think, I'm not going to achieve anything.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
100%, 100%. I really want to talk about what you've just said to me, the fact that somebody who's got stage 4 cancer can follow steps, even when clinically they've been told there's nothing more they can do, what do they do? And what have you seen from all the research and all the data are the steps that people have taken that have helped them recover?
I mean, there's a degree of variety in the steps that all of these ECAPs have mobilized, but the bulk of it is consistent. And whenever I'm asked that question, there's only one kind of real answer, because across all of the published literature, and every single ECAP that I've ever worked with, one-to-one or within the research context, the single biggest predictor of becoming an ECAP, so the very first step, is creating a belief system that you can.
No way.
Without exception. Yeah, without. So, and once you create, and that's a learned skill. There's clear neuro science around that being a learned skill. But once you then have the absolute conviction in that it can be done, and that's why the ECAP research is so important, because someone else with the same situation has shown you it can be done, is then cultivating, and this is the most important step, a overwhelmingly important reason for living.
Wow.
And there's a very big difference between, it's a subtle difference, but a big difference between not wanting to die and wanting to live.
Wow, this is crazy. I just want to recap there because I'm just taking it all in. So what you're saying to me is the research has shown that people who have survived exceptional cancers are people who believe in themselves.
Who believe themselves, believe they can, and have a very overwhelming passion or reason for living. So
self-belief.
Yeah.
And essentially what your passion is and purpose.
And I've got a brilliant example. Can I just digress? So I was working with a man with stage 4 prostate cancer at Crawley Hospital years ago. He had metastatic prostate cancer. It was in his spine. It was in his liver and a few other places. And he had a prognosis of about 12 months. And at that point, he was already about 10 months. And 6 months went by, and then 12 months went by, and then, I kept on, checking up with him and working with him and whatnot. And I stopped working with him about just before COVID, actually. So about 4 or 5, what was it? Just under 5 years later. And he was in tip-top health. He still had active cancer in his body, but he was as active and healthy as he was before his diagnosis.
Wow.
But he was a very high level, not worldwide, but European level competitive vegetable grower. He'd won awards for this, that, biggest, whatever, every award going. The only award he hadn't won in the European tour was the biggest marrow. And him looking me in the eyes and saying, I absolutely refuse to die until I have grown the biggest marrow at an international gold standard competition. And every autumn, his wife used to say, I'm so pleased he hasn't done it because I know he's got another growing year.
Wow.
And I'm not saying that he was doing loads of other things.
Yes.
But having that, it hasn't got to be a big thing like climbing Mount Everest or sailing around the world. It doesn't matter what the actual goal is. It's the attachment and the significance of it. And for him, that was such an overwhelming driver. And what's so fascinating now is that you go back 10 years and you had to take that on face value, but now you can actually measure and quantify biochemically how that belief system actually changes physiology in a way that allows that person to live longer. So all the dots have kind of been joined up, which to me is mind-blowing.
I love that example. I think it's amazing. But I also am skeptical on it, and I'll tell you why. Because I've known people who have passed away due to cancer, and they were very strong-minded.
Yeah.
They had a lot of self-belief. They had some really important things that were coming up.
Yeah.
I'm afraid people might look at that and feel that we are saying it's a bunch of woo-woo.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that, actually that's a lie. I do believe that some people, when they get the diagnosis, feel like they want to give up. I do believe that, actually. But the person I'm referring to in my mind, I don't believe that they thought, I'm just going to give up. No. I believe that they fought and fought and fought. But the science showed us that they could not survive.
Yeah.
The body broke down. So no matter how much purpose or passion or whatever they had, their body physically could not move.
Yeah.
And they couldn't eat.
Yeah.
and then they couldn't sleep and they couldn't go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And, all of those things led to a spiral.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is almost the next wave of research is the why and the why not. And I'm the same as you. I've met, ECAPs, they're still rare. They're common enough to validate and justify an understanding of how they do what they do. But I've likewise met, hundreds and hundreds of people who on the surface have thrown the kitchen sink at it, but have still died. Yeah. And that's very hard to swallow because you want to know why. What was the difference? And I think there is a skew sometimes around the cancer site because some cancers are more destructive on the body than others. So if you've got something like a liver cancer, if the cancer grows in the liver and the liver stops working properly, everything else is going to stop working with it, which isn't to say there's been loads of ECAPs who've had liver cancer, but it may be statistically it's harder. Whereas like breast cancer is probably the highest concentration of ECAPs, which is by no means to infer breast cancer that's not to downplay it in any way, shape or form. But it's, whether that's because there's more research in breast cancer or more funding, I don't know. So I haven't got an answer to that question, unfortunately, because it keeps me awake at night because every time someone dies, and there was a parent at my kid's school who did die, young children, primary school children. And, for weeks you're thinking, well, what was missing? Is there a way of quantifying in his blood work and his labs why his body didn't rally when another person who was on paper sicker is still here and is thriving? And it's, if I had, could click my fingers and have a wish, it would be one of them. I'd want to know why and how do you mitigate that so that the people that are deteriorating, you can actually trigger that so that they then move into the stronger cohort because it's obviously so soul destroying.
Yeah, of course. And this is where it's really interesting for me because I talk about a lot of things on this podcast, right? Today we're talking about this. But there's times I talk about astrology. Yeah. And there's times I talk about karma. Yeah. And a lot of people believe that, when you come here and when you leave, it's already written. Yeah. A lot of people believe, in your astrological chart, it'll tell you when you're going to die or it'll tell you when these things are going to happen. So how much of it is, and you said at the start of this conversation, we're all individual. Yeah. So my body could fight against something and your body could not. Yeah. And on paper, it looks exactly the same. Yeah. But actually, I might have a slight cell variation or something a little bit different. My karma might be different. Yeah. There's so many things. And that's what I think is really difficult as well.
So hard. And it's really hard. And this is the problem with this topic is that every answer you get generates more questions. Yeah. Because like you say, do you take that view of I've got an allotted number of days and it doesn't matter what I do, right? I am going to die then come what, doesn't make a difference what I do.
Yeah, it's God's chosen this time for me. Yeah.
It's in the bigger interests of myself and my family and humanity that I die at this point. Or do you rage against the machine and say, I don't want to accept that. I've got things, I've got family and I've got this, that and the other. And I might die then, but if I do die then, it's not going to be one of trying. And how do you, and I think that is, I've known plenty of people who have said, I love the idea of being an ECAP. I love what you're saying. I believe what you're saying. I believe the science, but I don't want to. I'm happy. Right. And that takes more courage, I think, than it does to say, okay, I'm going to throw the kitchen sink and become an ECAP. Because what you said is, I've been given 12 months to live. I've made peace with that. And I'm going to go gently into the night and go with it. Okay. And that takes an unimaginable amount of courage and acceptance. And I don't think it's like saying, is a certain food nice or unpleasant? Oysters, you love oysters or you hate them. They don't have that quality. It depends upon the person. I think it's that if you have a type of personality that refuses to accept something that's been given to you and you try and do something that doesn't align with that, it's probably not going to work for you because you're going to have a conflict between who you are, what your deepest drivers are, and how you're almost being forced to move from that point on. Whereas if you're someone who is, very accepting, very passive, or not even that, but just is happy, has had a good life, and they say, well, okay, I've got 12 months to live. I'm gonna make the best time of that as I possibly can, but I'm happy to die then. I'm happy to, not happy to accept it, but I'm willing to accept it.
Yes.
And if that person tries to throw the kitchen sink at it, it probably might not work because their inner dialogue, their deeper inner message is actually, do you know what? This isn't for me. And I think it's when you fight against that deepest inner whisper that you get probably the inner conflict maybe. But I don't know, because these are questions that I ask myself every week, and I haven't got an answer to them. But all I can do is go with what I've seen and try and help people who do want to become ECAPs to try and empower them with as much evidence-based practices as I can. And then what they do with that and their own spirituality and their own belief system ultimately rests on them.
Be interesting to see out of the ECAPs what dosha types were the most prominent, because what you've just described to me is, that stubbornness. Is that Kapha? No.
That kind of devil may care stubbornness is very pittogenic.
Oh, pitta.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and interestingly, the last 5 ECAPs that I have worked with or interviewed have all been very pitta dominant.
Wow.
And that's by no means inferring that is a prerequisite to being an ECAP, but it is an interesting observation, because I think that's you put a wall in front of a pittogenic person, and their first response is, I'm going to get over it.
Yeah.
And you put a terminal cancer prognosis in front of a very, very pittogenic person. It's almost viewed as a challenge of, okay, watch what happens.
Wow,
and,
so interesting.
Yeah, and you see that in the body language. You can see them kind of giving themselves a talking to and saying, okay, well, this has been given to me. I can change it. Yeah, I choose my own reality. And I didn't care what you tell me. I don't care what you tell me. This is how I'm going to do it. And again,
so
it's and everyone can learn that, but there are people that inherently have more of an ability to
naturally like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting actually, because I remember when someone told me that once, I said, who has determined the statistics?
Yeah.
When someone came to me and told me that something couldn't be done, I said, statistics change.
Yeah.
And they do.
Yeah, constantly.
Who has said that this is the statistic and it's 100% never going to move? And you actually going to fall in the low end of that, by the way?
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
You can change it.
Yeah.
We can change anything.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I really do believe that statistics can change, and that's actually something that I think that we should tell everyone, because, but I know what you're saying, that some people just inherently do not believe it like that.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the science behind all of these studies. Tell me about the evidence, because I know there's going to be people who are watching and listening to this thinking, yeah, great, you've told me about an ECAP, you've told me about these exceptional stories of people who have survived cancer, but guess what? Someone I love has just been diagnosed with cancer. Yeah. I feel absolutely horrific. I feel awful. I feel as if my whole world is crashing down. What the hell do? I think the very first thing is to not infer any kind of blame or self-application of, well, this is my fault, or this person didn't become an ECAP, or I'm not becoming ECAP. It's not to infer, well, that's your fault. You haven't done it properly. That's the first thing, because that's always a big block, and that I'm always very careful to not make sure that doesn't come across, because I hate that idea of someone saying, well, I am deteriorating and my dad is getting worse, so therefore they're not doing enough. It's not about that, because sometimes you can't do anything about it. But if you're, you or a loved one is diagnosed with cancer and, it's later stage, what do you do? Is that what you're asking? What do you do? So I guess, sorry, let me reframe the question. What would somebody do if they have just personally been diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer?
Yeah.
Can they cure it? And what would you suggest that they do if they are panicked, they're worried, they're anxious, they're in a bit of a frenzy because they're not willing to accept, but they do want to change, but they don't know what to do?
I think the first thing, can you cure it? You have the potential to cure it unequivocally. How do you facilitate that? I think, like I said, the first thing to do is you have to do it hierarchically. You have to, if you just jump in and say, right, I'm going to radicalize my diet, or I'm going to start running 10 miles every day. It's ad hoc, it's random, it's no structure. So it needs to be a structured plan. It needs to be, in the book, I talk about a term called Kaizen, which is a Japanese, so just small progressive changes. Cancer's never really acute. Even if it's stage 4, you've got time to plan this out.
Really?
If you even say you were diagnosed, say you have breast cancer or testicular cancer, and it progressed from localized to stage 3 to stage 4, even then your prognosis is still usually 12, 16 months. There are cases where obviously it's much shorter than that, but generally speaking, there are very few instances where you have to make a rash decision with cancer. You've got time to go back home. So, okay, I've been given 9 months to live.
Right.
How do I engineer a survivorship protocol that unleashes everything that the evidence tells me has to be unleashed to maximize my chances of becoming exceptional. So yes, that might include conventional treatments, but you have to, if you start using the shotgun approach where you're just, firing at everything and there's no structure, there's no formula, it's random, that can almost create more panic and more anxiety because you don't know what's working. It's exhausting. Whereas it's about getting your ducks lined up and saying, right, the first thing I need to do is forget cancer, forget prognoses and dates and times. Let's just get myself set. Because at the moment I'm in a blind panic. I'm not sleeping. I'm stressed. I'm anxious. I can't digest properly because I'm so het up.
Yeah.
Forget cancer and just focus on you. How do you get yourself back to balance? How do you get yourself back to feeling good, feeling positive, sleeping well, digesting well, just calming down? And whether you go away and just book a secluded Airbnb for a week and just take your journal, take your vision board, take your planning for what you want to be doing in 6 months, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, start meditating, getting out in nature. Get beyond cancer and just initially focus on yourself. How do I make myself feel as stable and grounded and as empowered as I can so that I feel better? My energy is good, my sleep is good, my mood is good.
Okay.
Once you've got that platform, then you can build on the specifics. My diet's not great. Okay, how do I adopt? What's the most powerful anti-cancer diet that I can adopt for my type of cancer? Research that, go to a nutritionist, get that embedded. That's working well. Then you say, okay, well now what about herbal medicines? Get that embedded. And then what about exercise? What about massage? What about yoga? What about circadian alignment? And it has to be sequential. You can't do everything at once. It's too much. And what you often find is if you use that almost headless chicken approach, you exhaust yourself more than you do replenish yourself.
Yes.
It has to be hierarchically driven. And there's no point adopting these brilliant diets and these brilliant herbal regimes and the most advanced genetic treatments if you are deeply unhappy, deeply stressed, anxious, not enjoying life, not sleeping, because you're putting good into a body that's dysregulated.
Yeah, but how does somebody regulate themselves? Someone's been told that they have stage 4 cancer. And let's just say they come from a big family. The entire family is panicking. Everyone's crying every single day. Everyone's really upset. You have been told that you're going to pass away within 18 months.
Yeah.
Or let's say 12 months or even 6 months. Yeah. And then you're out there being like, guys, I want to feel good. You're just not going to want to feel that way.
No, and it's not about false positivity. It's not about false positivity. That's very detrimental, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a facade of positivity is perhaps the worst thing you can do. It's actually been researched. They did a very powerful study where they looked at responses to that kind of prognosis, and the people that were artificially cheerful, artificially positive, or people pleasers died statistically sooner than those who viewed it as a challenge, even if that viewing of a challenge made them feel angry.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's actually that facade to the whole family. It's great. I've got it. All the ECAP research is here. It's going to be fine. But inside they are breaking down is really damaging because there's no vent of that inner emotion.
Yes. And we're trapping it inside our bodies. This is amazing research, actually. Have they done that in general, just in terms of cancer?
They've done it in terms of risks for catastrophic heart attacks. They've done it for strokes. They've done it for carers of disabled, very full on, if you're caring for a child that's very full on, disabled, that those often mums, sometimes dads, so they're very isolated, they have very poor health profiles. Yeah. They've looked at coping strategies there. And as soon as someone perceives that situation as a challenge that they can face and overcome, they are almost always the group that are the ones that have the better outcomes.
So if there's a problem in life, and I'm somebody who sees it as a challenge, like this is a problem, let's figure out how we can solve it. Or I'm somebody who says, don't worry guys, it will be fine. Everything's okay, we'll figure it out. But then I go home and I feel absolutely hysterical. I have less chance of survival.
Evidentially, on the evidence that exists, there's very clear evidence that coping strategy will dictate physiological changes relevant to longevity.
But if we have been faced with a complete bombshell, and let's face it, telling somebody that they've got 6 months to live is a bombshell. How do we actually address that emotion? Because let's say, for example, I want to be positive. I've got your book, I've got the ECAP research in front of me. Okay, I get it. But internally, I just don't feel it. Internally, I'm like, the doctor has just told me I've got 6 months to live.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what this book says, doesn't matter what you said. I just feel like I'm going to give up. How much time do I have to kind of go through those emotions and feel sad? And how do I come out of it?
Yeah, that's the key point. You've got to go through them. You have to go through them. And that's where, I worked, back in, not so much now, but very closely with psychotherapists.
Okay.
Because they are brilliant at getting into the conscious, but the subconscious drivers. Saying, okay, there's no point you sitting here on this desk and telling me that everything's fine. You've been told you're going to die in 6 months.
Right.
How does that actually make you feel? What are your deepest, darkest fears around this? Let's get them on the table. Let's assess them and get them gone. And then with that in hand, and that's not a switch. That's a constant journey. You're never going to get to a point. There's any ECAP that tells you that once they get to a certain point, they don't think about their mortality. They don't think about cancer is lying. If you're living with a terminal cancer, it's going to affect your day every day. Of course it is. Of course. But it's about adaptively managing that rather than it managing you. And that some people overcome that or deal with that very, very efficiently on their own. Some people need therapy or counseling or psychotherapy. Most people do.
Yeah, of course.
And some people will be every day embedding practices to stop them sliding back. Some people get to a point where they got it and it's kind of they can shelve it. And that's as variable as there are people. And I think the key is to work out what you need. And I think the family, the familial setting is really important, because if you're someone who you're dealing with it, you wake up, have a bad day and you're back in the hole, you need your people, whether it's your husband or wife or whoever, to have tools to help you get out of that.
Yeah.
So that because the worst thing you can do is to put that smiley face on.
Yeah.
Because it's the worst thing. So none of this is about denial. It's not about putting your head in the sand. It's not about a facade of positivity. It's about being into a very, very black space and saying, how do I get out of it?
Okay.
And when I'm out of it, how do I engineer a protocol that's going to maximize my ability to survive?
So what we're saying, so just written down the steps, is if somebody's given a prognosis where they've said, sorry, there's nothing more we can clinically do.
Yep.
What you're saying is don't give up, number one.
Absolutely.
Have the belief that you can overcome this and do that through psychotherapy, go and speak to someone. I don't know if you can do it yourself, amazing, through people, whatever. Get to a place where you feel good within yourself.
Yeah.
Then look at your nutrition for your specific cancer that you have and understand what that diet plan is. Speak to a nutritionist, Google it, whatever.
Yeah.
The third is understand herbal remedies and alternatives. Talk to me about that. Yeah,
I mean, that's not, there are, at the same time, obviously exploring, there's always new cutting edge genetic and immunotherapy. So you're making sure that you're really up to date with your clinical care team and saying, I want to be any clinical trial that is relevant to my state, making sure that I'm kept abreast of it and making sure that you tick the box to say, I want to be considered for clinical trials. So this is making sure that everything we're doing on this side of the table is still always everything conventionally speaking that can be done or potentially can be done is still being explored. So with that assumption and caveat.
Adding,
So the herbal medicines, again, the skepticism, and you said earlier about approaching this from the view of skepticism, I think is the best place you can approach it from. I don't like it when people come into this space and they're bought in before they know anything, because I think that's almost like, it's not false, but if you approach it from a skeptical point of view or a cynical point of view, and then you believe it, you've turned from poacher to gamekeeper. You've actually seen the evidence and you are happy to have accepted it. And I think when you look at the herbal medicines, that's a classic case of that, because you go back 10 years, the claims that you could make around the ability of certain herbal medicines to quantifiably interact with cancer cell biology was weak. Whereas now it is so robust. And research, you look at like the Mayo Clinic in America, one of the biggest cancer centers in the world, the Memorial Sloan Kettering, the biggest cancer centers. They have integrative research teams that are using herbs in their survivorship research. Things like myeloma, there's research showing that herbs like astragalus can actually extend life in certain types of lung cancer. So when it comes to herbs, yes, it needs to be individualized and it needs to be absolutely safe, and it always is subservient to the conventional treatment. If you're on a conventional treatment and you want to take a herbal protocol and there's a risk of interaction, the herbal protocol has to give way to the conventional treatment.
Right.
But most of the time they can be done synergistically. And if you can get that individualized herbal protocol working, you see very often you will see very, very significant changes in blood results and lab results. So this is anyone that's listening to this and thinking, well, it's quackery, it's lotions and potions and rubbish. If you ask that question and you look at it exclusively through the lens of published research, there's one conclusion, and that conclusion, herbal medicines as one part of an integrative plan can make a massive, massive impact upon cancer cell behavior.
Give me an example.
So, for example, there's a herb called amla or amalaka, Indian gooseberry, which is one of my favorites. One of the most
amazing for hair, isn't it?
Everything.
So good.
Yeah. And so that herb has been shown to induce something called apoptosis, so programmed cell death in a wide variety of cancer cells. Wow. Turmeric, the most famous, the pin-up of anti-cancer herbs. So there's these kind of hallmarks of cancer, which are the main mechanisms and pathways that make cancer what it is. If you think about cancer as being dangerous, it's these hallmarks. And all of those hallmarks have published evidence to show that herbs can suppress them and interact with them. And actually in the book, there's a very detailed overview of those pathways. And there's quite a well-documented herbal formulation that uses herbs like amla and triphala and turmeric and astragalus into a combined prescription. So we could talk all day about the research around the benefits of herbs in cancer care, but looking at things like immunology, the impacts. If you're living with cancer, your immune system is the single most powerful weapon you will ever have. It doesn't matter. There will never be immunotherapy. The reason immunotherapy is getting such amazing results is not putting anything into the body. It's just helping the immune system do what it naturally does more efficiently. And you look at things like immune aggressiveness, immune surveillance, actual immune activity, not generally, but actually in the tumor microenvironment, the way the immune cells are interacting with cancer cells, you can see quantifiable changes in those mechanisms through the application of herbal medicines.
Wow.
So this is, again, we're trying to just build up the robustness. You've got the diet right, you've got your headspace right, you're looking at the conventional treatments, and you add in the herbal medicines. Then you go again, and then you go again, and you're building up just you're making life very hard for cancer, because ultimately what you're doing is you're making cancer operate in an environment that it doesn't want to operate in, because it's suddenly facing an onslaught that it isn't used to.
I actually really love that you've said this, because I think so often when we look at herbs, we just think, it's like you said, loads of lotions and potions, whatever. It's a bit of rubbish.
Yeah.
But you've actually got scientific data and evidence to show us that these herbs are really helpful when you're doing this alongside other things. So we've got these 4 steps. What's the last step after you've figured out those 3 above?
I wouldn't say it's the last step, but another fundamentally important step is the circadian alignment. You have to, this is a non-negotiable, not just for cancer, for anyone that wants to live a long, healthy, happy life. Circadian alignment it won the Nobel Prize in 2018. It's the new frontier of, there aren't many areas of medicine that aren't being affected by the increasing knowledge of circadian alignment, circadian medicine. And in the cancer arena, it's sacrosanct, because healthy cells that are in circadian alignment, particularly immune cells, are more anti-cancer. But what they've now shown is that cancer cells, they didn't know this until quite recently, cancer cells actually have their own circadian clock. And there was a famous study done on people with terminal brain cancer. So the same diagnosis, the same prognosis, the same conventional treatments, the people who had brain cancer cells that were in circadian misalignment died significantly sooner than those who had the same cancer, but the cancer cells were in circadian alignment. Yeah, and it's because we now know that when cancer cells are circadian aligned, they don't become dormant, but the activity very often slows down to the cycle rate. Yeah, so it's massive. Yeah.
So what you're saying is, if someone has cancer and they go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time every single day, they will die.
Well, there's evidence to show
that people have lived longer by doing that.
Yeah, so the other way around. So circadian misalignment is now classified as a type 1A carcinogen.
Yes, I heard that.
So it's like saying, smoking's a carcinogen, tar is a carcinogen, circadian misalignment is a carcinogen.
So if people wake up and go to sleep at the different times every single day, it's basically like them smoking.
Yeah, pretty much.
No way.
And but our environment is, you got to, this opens a can of worms because it's how deep you go with this. But I think what is lost in the translation is something called the Paleolithic genome.
Okay.
So, as a species, we're 200,000 years old. We emerged in Tanzania 180, 200,000 years ago.
Did we? Wow.
So our genome is 90% the same now as it was then. But how did we live then? Imagine Tanzania 200,000 years ago, no artificial light, no electricity. What did we do? No diurnal, daytime mammal. Every other species other than humans that is daytime active wakes up with the sun, is active, eats and moves in the daylight, and then goes to bed when it gets dark. Because you can't hunt, you can't eat.
True.
Back in the day when we were hunter-gatherers, and every healthy species does that. But obviously we've engineered lights, and we can get Ubers at 2 a.m. We can work on our emails at 11 at night. So we've engineered a world where it's harder to be in circadian alignment. So it's easier to be in circadian misalignment than it is circadian alignment. And our genome hasn't evolved to deal with that. It might do, who knows? But at the moment, what we're essentially doing is we're asking a fish to swim out of water. We haven't got the hardware or the software to live in the environment that we've created for ourselves.
So what is the perfect kind of alignment? Because I have a real issue with this whole circadian rhythm thing. I'll tell you why. My Aura ring tells me that I should wake up at around 6:30 or 7.
Yeah.
And then it says I should go to bed around 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right? Now, when I do that, I feel like a slob.
Yeah.
Because when I started this podcast, I used to wake up at 5 a.m. I used to have so much energy. I was so excited. I used to voice note myself at 2 a.m. in the morning. I was barely sleeping. And I used to kind of wear it as a badge of honor. Then, I did it for a long time and kind of the passion kind of died down a little bit. And I'm just joking. But, I have in my 30s struggled more with little sleep.
Okay.
So now I sleep a lot more. So I sleep 7 to 8 hours now. Now, a lot of the time, I still want to wake up really early because I feel that I have protected parts of my day. Once 8 o'clock hits, it's chaos, it's mayhem.
Yeah.
So I do like to wake up around 5:30.
Yeah.
Now, one of my other podcasts, I was telling my guest is that Nikhil, my partner, he can wake up at 5 a.m. and he's totally fine. He'll wake up, he'll jump out of bed, go to the gym straight away. I can't go to the gym straight away.
No.
Now, if he wakes up really early, he's going to sleep early.
Yeah.
Right? So when we started living together, because we both were in this routine before we lived together, we're like, we'll sleep early and we'll wake up early together. Now, that kind of lasted for about 6 months.
Yeah.
One of us, i.e. me, said, I'm going to wake up a little bit later because I have something, big. I have lots of events to go to. I'd come back late a lot of the time. But I basically started to sleep a little bit later. Now, we then started going to bed at different times and waking up at different times. So what's really difficult now is I am really tired, but he wakes up and I wake up with him.
Yeah.
But I'm so exhausted. And then what happens is the whole day I feel so tired. And I want to get into bed. I have about 10,000 billion things that I've forgotten to do. And I'm just not in my circadian rhythm. Now, I don't know whether to follow Aura, which tells me, Shivani, wake up at about 6:37, but go to bed at 11, which would also mean that I'm out of sync with him.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wake up that late because I like to go to Pilates at 7 a.m. or at the gym. But do I then, and then also the other side is lots of people say you should wake up at 5 a.m., sunrise, all the rest of that. What do I do?
There's so many sides to this. So I think we have to take the foundational one. So the things like the sleep trackers, they're tracking sleep quantity and quality, aren't they? Relevant to how much you need. They're not tracking it as a function of circadian alignment.
Okay, but Aura does say chronotype.
Yeah, so that will dictate your sleep profile. But your circadian alignment is not up. It's not dictated by what we think or whether we like getting up at 5 a.m. and meditating. It's driven by the structure of the brain. It's not up for debate. It's not open to interpretation. So within your brain, you have right at the center of the brain, something called the SCN, which stands for the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and that's the Big Ben, the master timekeeper in the body. When that is activated in the morning, and I'll get to what activates it in a second, that then pulls the string on how the body will work for the next 24 hours. And you can't redeem that if it's missed until the next day. So what stimulates, this is what won the Nobel Prize. So what stimulates the SCN, the master clock, is, so you have daytime clock genes and nighttime clock genes. So when the SCN switches on in the morning, that then turns off all of the nighttime genes and turns on all of the daytime genes. And they will control everything that has to happen, trillions, infinite number of things that has to happen between then and sunset for your body to be strong. Immune function, digestion, cerebral blood, everything, merely trillions of things. Once the sun sets, they then turn off and the nighttime genes come on. And they will control the things that can only happen at night, particularly things like neural detoxification. You can only clear neural toxins at night, which is why poor sleep is linked to Alzheimer's. But the thing that triggers everything, so the SCN governs everything, but what governs the SCN is the UVA, UVB infrared frequency in the first 90 minutes after sunrise.
Okay. So what does that mean?
So that means if you expose your eyes to light in the first 90 minutes after sunrise, it will stimulate the SCN to do everything it has to do. Job done. If you miss that stimulation and the SCN is then out of sync, the body's going to be out of sync for the next 24 hours. Not catastrophically, but it will be out of sync. You can biohack it with things like the sun lamps and things like that.
Got it.
So in terms of tiredness and when you wake up, there's obviously quite a significant, in the northern latitudes, a seasonal shift there. Now, the sun rises at 4:45.
Yeah.
So that means as long as you're waking, say 5, for make it easy, as long as you're waking up before 5:30, you're going to be exposing your eyes to the right frequency of light, which is going to stimulate the SCN, which is going to regulate your circadian alignment for the next 24 hours.
But what if I woke up at 7 and exposed myself to sunlight?
The frequency of light wouldn't be the infrared, the UVA, UVB has lost that frequency. So it's sunrise. So it's the light that's emitted by the sun in the first 90 minutes after it crests the horizon.
No way.
Yeah, which is the same for all diurnal mammals. Like I said, when we were living as hunter-gatherers, we always woke with the sun. It's an evolutionary driver. So that as the sun comes up, what does the body wakes up? So what happens? So the body says, well, if I'm waking up, I need to be active. So what then happens is our cortisol we think of as being this bad stress hormone, which it is, but it's one of the most important hormones in the body because it's one of the only hormones where you get a really big spike once a day, which is between about, there's a degree of variation, but most people say by 6 in the morning. So between about 4 and 6, cortisol is dumping into the blood from the adrenals. And that's your get up and go hormone in preparation for waking up. So come between 6 and 6:30 most times, your body is primed to get up, somewhere between 5 and 6:30. So the cortisol's fired, your blood pressure, your blood flow, your hormones, your digestive system, everything's firing up because from millions of years of evolution that because the sun's coming up, you're going to wake up, which means you need to move, you need to eat, you need to think. So all of the things that happen in the day are fired up in preparation for doing that.
You're saying every single person has that within them between 5 and 6:30 a.m.
There's a lot of debate around how fixed that is across people.
Okay.
But the SCN, the part of the brain that pulls the trigger, that is unequivocal. That can only be stimulated by the unique frequency of light that is emitted in sunrise sunlight, dawn sunrise.
That is crazy. So wherever you are in the world, you should try and get up between when the sun rises and 90 minutes after it.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't, for people who say, well, I'm not a morning person, I don't like to wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
I like to sleep in till about 10, 11 o'clock because that's when I like to start my day and I have most energy.
Yeah.
What's the consequence for late sleepers or not morning types?
The consequence is that you're going to be in a chronic state of circadian misalignment because you're waking up at a point where you're then giving your eyes a stimulus which it doesn't know what to do with. It's saying, well, I should have been awake 3 hours ago, and I'm not. And a great example of this, and I always see it in myself, is holidays. I love holidays, but I hate how they make me feel. I feel sluggish and I feel lethargic. And the reason is I usually sleep in, I get up at 5 every morning.
Every single day?
Every single day. Well, not so much on the weekends, but I try to every day, Monday to Friday, religiously.
Okay. What time do you wake up on the weekends, by the way?
Whenever I wake up, I don't set an alarm.
Roughly?
6:30.
Okay, so you haven't got that much of a gap is what I was trying to get at, yeah.
Because I say what you said, if I get up after 7, I feel awful.
Right.
I feel like on holiday, you know how you get holiday and the first few days you're on real rhythm and then suddenly you just morph into this like slob.
Yeah.
By the end of it, you're waking up at 9 and you get home and I feel like I need a holiday to recover from the holiday. And that's because it's essentially like a minor jet lag. You know, you think about jet lag, if you got on the plane to flew to Australia, what would happen for the next 72 hours? Your digestion's out of sync.
Yes.
You feel awful. Why? The only reason for that is because your circadian alignment is completely upended. Nothing to do with being on a plane doesn't help and being dehydrated doesn't help, but they're tiny in comparison to the fact that your SCN doesn't know whether it's coming or going. So all of your cellular function, your metabolic function, your whole body is in an acute state of circadian misalignment. But many people are living like that, just at a dialed down. You know, it's not like acute jet lag, but the actual impact upon how we experience our body, things like chronic digestive impairment, bad digestion, you know, tired. We shouldn't be feeling tired if we're getting good sleep.
Right.
You know, weakened immunity. You know, this is why it's so aligned with the cancer work. You know, circadian misalignment is one of the most damaging things to human immune function in terms of risks of infections and things like that. So the bottom line is that every single, 50, 60 trillion cells in the body, every single one has its own clock, every cell. If that cell is aligned with the SCN, we are in a very, very good place because there's synergy and harmony between the cells and the master timekeeper. If there's conflict between what the brain wants based upon evolution and the way we live, you get circadian misalignment. So you get home late from work, it's 9 o'clock, you know you shouldn't eat, but you want to, you sit down in front of Netflix, you watch telly and start eating a pizza at 9:30. Your SCN is saying it's evening. From evolutionary speaking, we don't eat at this time. So it turns off your bile flow, your digestive enzymes.
Wow.
But by putting food in, your digestive system saying, well, I've got no choice. I can't not deal with this because you just put a pizza into my stomach. So that it has to then fire up. The brain's saying dial down. The cells are saying fire up. And then you get this huge cellular conflict between what the brain wants and what your cells are being forced to do through your action. And that is essentially what jet lag is, but just on a minor level. So things like working late in the evening, blue light, exercising at the wrong times, eating at the wrong there's a million and one things. But our culture makes it very easy to do that. Very easy.
If we've got our lights on, we've got our lamps on, we're on our laptops, watching TV, we're basically just telling our bodies that it's daylight still.
Yeah.
So then how is our SEN still not on? Does that make sense?
The SCN's always tracking because it's obviously it's 24 hour. But what it will do, so it doesn't notice darkness, it notices the absence of light. So when the sun sets, that then tells the SCN that the day has ended. And once the sun sets, that's my period of time where everything that can only happen at night, like immune rejuvenation and detoxification, et cetera, those things have to happen now. So the SCN, as soon as it notices there's no more light, switches the trip, the daytime genes turn off, the nighttime genes turn on, and then they regulate optimally everything that happens through the night. And that's what's interesting is that Ayurveda had a blueprint for this called Dinacharya, which is almost a carbon copy of this Nobel Prize winning model.
No way.
Yeah, and it calls it one day lived in bliss, which is a beautiful concept. So you get up at the right time, you live the right way, you eat in the right way, you go to sleep at the right way, you have the perfect night's sleep, you wake up the next day. So 24 hours lived in complete cellular harmony.
What is the best routine for us to follow to live a perfect day in bliss? What time should we wake up? What time should we eat? What should we eat? What should we go to sleep? What time?
I think waking up, 6 in the morning is a good happy medium because it covers most seasonal variety. It's going to hit the SCN 12 months of the year for most people.
Yeah.
Getting up then, that means you're hitting the cortisol curve. You're getting up when your cortisol's dumping. You're going to be energized. It means you're going to be ready for breakfast because if you have breakfast at, say, 7:30, your metabolism's fired up. You put good food in. You digest it well. You extract nutrients well. You deliver them to the cells well. That means you're hungry for lunch because you've had breakfast at the right time. digest that well, extract the nutrients well, it means you're ready for dinner early. We shouldn't be eating after 7 really.
Really?
Well, yeah, well, again, there's variations here, but generally speaking, once it gets to about 8, your metabolic function is really nosediving. So that's the worst time, because if you're putting in a big meal at 9 and you can't digest it properly, it putrefies in the gut. It sits in the gut longer.
But in the summer, the sunlight's out at about 9 o'clock. So
yeah,
if we eat at 8, is it all right?
Summer, so there's a much more leniency now. Like now, it's midsummer, it's not dark until 10:30.
Yeah.
So there's a big, whereas in the middle of the winter, you need to be more on it. So
that's interesting though, actually, because in the winter, it gets dark here about 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So when should I have my last meal?
That's where there's a conflict between our evolution. We evolved in the tropics, where it's 12 and 12. We evolved in Tanzania. We emerged in Tanzania, so it's in the between the tropics. So it's 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark. We didn't evolve in Scandinavia. So there's on the northern latitudes of Britain. So there's a degree of how you manage that, but that's the lesser issue. The main thing is that morning exposure, because that is what dictates everything.
Really?
Yeah. So from that moment for the next 24 hours, that whole functionality is informed by what has or hasn't happened to the SCN.
So if you're struggling with cancer at the moment, if you've been told that, you're on stage 3 or stage 4, what you're saying actually is one of the most important things that you can do is figure out a time where you can wake up on time at the same time every single day and go to bed at the same time every single day.
Yeah.
Make sure you get that morning sunlight and make sure you're not eating too late so your food can digest.
And there's 2 caveats there. One is if you're going through treatment like chemotherapy, you need to sleep more and don't worry about circadian because you just need to rest.
So don't worry about circadian.
No, if you're going through aggressive chemotherapy and you're on your knees, the most important thing is that you look after your energy and you sleep, because the body needs it. And it's more important in that stage. Once you're recovering, then the circadian alignment is sacrosanct. But when you're going through chemotherapy, you need more sleep. And that applies to viral illnesses. If you've got infections, anything like that, then you need to sleep more. And you can look at that, you look at an animal, and my cat recently had a really bad tooth infection, slept all day. It knows to do that because when you sleep, your immune system is rejuvenated. So there are caveats, but, and also the other one was there's a big difference between waking up and getting up. Because what a lot of people, particularly in the cancer context, will say, well, I'm so tired. The thought of getting up at 6 starting the day is too much.
Yes.
You don't have to get up, you just have to open your eyes. So what it might be is you might set your alarm for 6, open the blinds, let the light come in, stimulate the SCN, and then maybe sit in bed, make a cup of tea, go back to bed, read a book, chat, chill out, listen to a podcast. So you don't have to get up and get going. You just need to wake up.
Sunlight
So there's a big difference. It's not the connotation that you have to jump out of bed and straight into the day. It's just about connecting your eye to the sun. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and again, there's been clinical research done looking at things like chronic fatigue, ME, and what they've found is when people progressively get up earlier, their fatigue gets progressively better. And it's because they're aligning with that cortisol and that their natural energy production system. So it spans everything. It's now dictated. We know chemotherapy drugs are more efficient and less toxic when they're delivered at different times of the day based upon circadian alignment. So blood pressure meds, this is a whole new frontier of health.
So what's the perfect morning routine for someone who wants to optimize their health?
I mean, again, it's called Dinacharya in Ayurveda. It's a very well-constructed routine. It's one that I've followed for years, because the same as you, I hate the idea of waking up and then just suddenly you're behind before you begin. So for me, the reason for getting up at 5 is, one, it does all of the physiology around the circadian rhythm, but it means then between then and like 7, really, between when the kids get up and whatnot, that for me, wake up, have a cup of tea, just sit down in the garden room thing and just wake up nice and slowly, the light's coming in. Then I will do I usually meditate for at least 20 minutes, half an hour. That takes me to about 6. Then I try and do, just to get the blood flowing, some kind of, often sun salutations or some kind of yoga stretching, not a workout.
Okay.
I'm the same as you. I can't, people tell me till I'm blue in the face, exercise in the morning. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I train in the afternoon, but
I like to do it in the morning, but a bit later. So that's why I need the time before to wake up. Yeah.
So, and then just to get the body flowing. Then in Ayurveda, self-massage is really, really important. It's called self-abhyanga. It's a cornerstone of self-care. So literally just, 3-4 minute massage you just deliver to your limbs.
Oh.
And it sounds wacky and it sounds esoteric, but if you look at the clinical research around skin stimulation through self-massage on things like immune parameters, hormone parameters, it is profound.
Wow.
So, and all this is documented in the book in detail, but so it's a kind of a snapshot. So then a hot shower, and that then takes me to about 6:45.
Not a cold shower.
I can't do that. I don't like cold showers. Because I'm not flying in the face of, I'm aware of the research around the effects of cold showers on immunity. But individually for me, I know that cold showers don't align with me as an individual. I don't feel good on them.
Yeah, me too. It's so interesting. Yeah.
And, it's like hitting your hand with a hammer. If it doesn't feel good, the chances are it's probably not
working for you.
No, whereas I know people that absolutely love it and feel great on it. You have to listen to that.
So true. One time I went to do an ice bath, and I'm very competitive. So I stayed in there for about 4 minutes. Yeah. I felt sick the entire day. I felt so unwell. Yeah. And then when we went to Bodrum, we went on a retreat. My mum did it, my auntie did it, and they both did it. Yeah. And they said, I feel amazing. Yeah. Then I felt like a loser, so I went and did it, right?
Yeah.
I was freezing for the entire day. It was 35 degrees. I had goosebumps for 3 hours.
So no good can come from that.
So for me now, I've just learned it's just not good for me. Yeah. I think a lot of people, I can handle the heat very easily. I can sit in 50 degrees, no problem.
Yeah.
And some people can't. Yeah. But I think that what you just said there is about, we've really got to have an individualized approach here rather than thinking about, what works for other people is definitely going to work for me.
And experimenting, I know lots of people that have tried 5 in the morning and it doesn't pay off. It's just too early for them. So, if you're listening to this and you're getting up at 7, don't just jump in. Maybe try getting up at 6:30 for a week.
Right.
And see how you feel. If that feels good, maybe put it back to 6, see how you feel. If that feels good, go to 5:30. You haven't got to rush this stuff. You can just be very systematic and holistic about it rather than.
That's true. I was going to ask you, what's your advice for someone who's not a morning person, but I think it's just start small, right?
Yeah, just progressive, just experiment. See how you see what works, see what doesn't work, what makes you feel good, and just give it time. It takes time to recalibrate. So don't make judgments around whether it's working or not working too quickly. Give it time, give it a couple of weeks to sink.
A lot of people are taking ashwagandha and magnesium at night.
Yeah.
And one of the questions actually when I asked my audience to tell me what to ask you was there's mixed research around ashwagandha. Is it just this kind of viral TikTok product that people want to have?
Yeah.
Or is there actual clinical research behind ashwagandha and why should we take it?
Well, the research around why we should take it is profound. I take ashwagandha most days.
Really?
The social media storm around it being bad is because Denmark banned it. You may see Denmark had banned ashwagandha.
Why?
Because they looked at the research and the toxicity of it, and they showed all the research showing how damaging it was to the liver and how toxic it was and the hormone imbalances it created. But they looked at the research that used the leaves, the flowers, and the stems, not just the root. Ashwagandha is a root medicine. So within the ashwagandha, there are certain compounds. In the root, they're in optimal balance ratios. In the leaves, they're at toxic levels. But the leaves are cheap, the roots are expensive. So if you look at the research that's created toxicity and you analyze the 500 milligram powder, it's about 1/5 ashwagandha root and 4/5 dried ashwagandha leaves. And that is toxic and dangerous. If you're using 100% certified ashwagandha root, none of that research holds true.
So you have to have root ashwagandha if you're going to have it.
Yeah, the Denmark research included all of the toxicity studies on the aerial parts of the plant, which are toxic. So, but if you then look at the good side, ashwagandha it's got, it's just such a phenomenal herb. It's a adaptogen. It helps us counter stress. It's an energy modifier. It's an immune modifier. It's just a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
So in terms of is it good? In Ayurveda, it's called a rasanyana, which means that which destroys aging and disease, which is a beautiful term.
Wow.
And there's anti-cancer actions, there's anti-Alzheimer actions. There's no question in my mind around whether it's good or bad.
You need to make sure you're having the source of the product, which is actually good for you, which is
and
the
make
root.
sure it's organic and certified. Because you don't want adulterated heavy metal, cheap.
Yes.
So just make sure it's organic.
I've got a couple of questions from my audience. And I think one of the key things is, how do you deal with people wondering if Ayurveda is going to interfere with cancer treatments? Because I think a lot of the time when people do get cancer treatments done, they're so worried about all the side effects. And now to introduce something else that they're maybe not familiar with can seem really overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, nothing within the Ayurvedic approach to cancer can interfere with cancer treatments other than the herbs. So the lifestyle practices, the circadian alignments, the diets, all the digestion modulation, they're all fine to integrate. There's not going to be any interactions because they're just natural dietary and lifestyle approaches.
Right.
With the herbal interventions, you have to be 100% transparent, and you need to go to your clinical care team and say, I'd like to use these herbs. Are you happy with me to use them? Here's the research around why I want to use them. Can you double check? And about 70% of the time, the consultants will say, well, we're doing your bloods every week. Anything abnormal we'll see, give it a go. Some will say, no, I don't know enough about it. I don't want to risk interactions. Let's just not do it.
Okay.
So the only thing you need to worry about is the herb side.
Okay.
But that's relatively black and white. You seek the advice of a professional, get a individualized prescription, and then get it signed off by your consultant.
Okay, fine. And then, do approaches between cancers vary? I think we kind of know that they do from what you've said.
Yeah, they will. I mean, there's a core foundation that will be the same, but then above and beyond that, there will always be foods and herbs and practices that are much more aligned with certain cancers.
Okay. Are you more prone to cancer if you're a pitta type?
You're not more prone to generic cancer. Classically, there was more alignment with blood-based cancers, hematological cancers.
Interesting.
But nothing that would, nothing significant to worry about if you're pitogenic.
Can Ayurveda heal stage 4 cancer?
I don't think anything can heal stage 4 cancer externally. I think Ayurveda can facilitate a big part of the journey alongside conventional care and nutritional care. But the thing that heals stage 4 cancer is the person that's living with it.
Yeah.
As long as they've got their ducks lined up with everything else. So Ayurveda can't cure stage 4 cancer. It's an integral part of what allows people to become exceptional.
Yes, I love that. What are the key ingredients that help to fight and prevent cancer?
The most important, well, there's a few most important things. A really robust immune system is, like I said earlier, just the most important thing. We know, it's something called the surveillance theory. So most adults over the age of about 19 will get cancerous cells 3 times a year. So if you tracked, right now I could have prostate cancer cells in my body. So most people will get cancerous cells 3 times a year. Most people don't get cancer, before 70. Most people, so the immune system is very able to find, identify, and destroy cancer before it becomes a problem. When the cancer does develop, something's gone wrong in that system, and usually it's the immune system. So if you keep your immune system really strong, really effective, really robust, that's kind of the most important thing. Detoxification is really important, making sure you're clearing out the carcinogens that we're all exposed to. Sleep is a massive predictor. Poor sleep is a predictor of cancer prevalence. Stress, chronic unmanaged stress is another really. So all of the things that, circadian alignment, so eating well, sleeping well, exercising well, doing all the things that support immunity.
I mean, it's really difficult, I guess, because everyone's so overwhelmed with life.
I know, it's so hard.
And then we're saying don't be stressed, sleep more, eat healthy. It just feels very overwhelming. But I also do think that there is something in just the basics of life that we've kind of forgotten about.
It's basics.
We can really easily forget about why we're doing something.
Yeah.
And I think, now it's become so much about what we're achieving rather than how we're living.
Yeah.
So whilst it seems quite, mundane to say that, I also think that it's really just so simple because it is simple.
Well, it should be simple.
Yeah, it should be.
Health is simple. It's just we put things in our way that make it difficult.
Yeah.
Like you say, eating well, sleeping well, moving the body well, being happy, having good relationships. We know what to do. We know what to do. It's just actually lining it up.
And doing it.
Yeah.
Can Ayurvedic medicine help to reduce side effects during chemo?
Yes, massively.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a whole chapter in the book called Putting Out the Fires, which is about how to manage the conventional treatments of chemo, radio, and hormone therapy. And the clinical trial data around the effectiveness of natural treatments to manage those is overwhelmingly strong. And it's one of the most frustrating things in my professional life is that people are suffering with side effects that I'm not saying can be cured, but can be greatly improved upon by not instead of conventional care, but alongside conventional care. The impact is so compelling.
Wow, that's amazing. And what's the alternative approach to tamoxifen tablets for breast cancer?
I wouldn't say there's a alternative. I mean, I think the tamoxifen data is pretty compelling around the benefits. So unless there was a very obvious reason for not using it, if your doctor recommended tamoxifen, I would be inclined to take it because we know that the recurrence rates with people taking it are much lower than those who aren't. So I would be very wary about providing an alternative when there's no real need to. Okay.
What would you use to support it though, from an Ayurvedic perspective?
Things that are going to help support hormone health. Because if tamoxifen is blocking the estrogen pathways and things like that, so that will affect lots of the hormone modulation. So herbs like adaptogens that will just help to support hormone balance when you're having something that is artificially affecting it.
Yeah.
So that would be key. Exercise has been shown to have a really big impact upon reducing tamoxifen side effects.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's lots that can be done.
Okay. And what's one thing that you would say to a cancer patient right now if they've lost hope?
Try to find something that sets you alight. Try and take solace in the fact that there will be someone that has achieved what you want to achieve. There will be someone with your prognosis and your diagnosis who has become exceptional, so you know it can be done. But before we do everything else, you have to find something that's going to just make you want to jump out of the bed in the morning and just seize the day. What's going to make you burn so brightly that you're so excited about living that it creates a cascade response in the body? We know it does. So I think trying to find purpose and passion is, and again, one of the, just quickly, a book, people always ask me what books I recommend.
Yeah.
And my top recommended book for survivorship, not my own, is nothing to do with cancer. It's Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Okay,
it's one of the best books I've ever read in my life, probably the best book. And read his approaches for cultivating a life of, this was in the hotbed of the concentration camps in Germany. And that applies as much to cancer survivorship as it does to surviving concentration camps. Read that book and apply its teachings and it will move mountains.
And what's the number one thing that every single person can do to increase their health that's totally free?
Circadian alignment.
Really?
I would say.
You think that will improve our health by that much?
I think it would. Because I think so many people are not ill, but they're not well. They haven't got pathology, but they are tired, they are unfocused, they are sluggish, they're not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And not all, but a large volume of that suboptimal level of vitality is often caused by the body working well, but working out of alignment. If you put it in alignment, most of the variables of the body that we discern, like digestion, energy, mood, will usually go with it.
And we do that by waking up within the first 90 minutes of sunrise.
Yeah, and then eating at the right time, going to bed at the right time, sleeping properly, not working. Yeah, all the things we spoke about. So I'm not saying it's the most important if you're healthy, but if you're out of alignment and then you move into alignment, those changes are often profound.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, honestly, my mind is a bit blown. I feel that this podcast has been one that I have definitely changed my mind on because, I think so often we're just told that there's one way to do something. And the whole reason I do these podcasts and do these episodes is to prove that there's multiple ways that we can do things and that we don't have to think with an either or approach.
Yeah.
We can use conventional medicine and we can also incorporate Ayurveda. And who knows, we can have more exceptional stories from people who have survived.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and thank you for coming to join me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.